Things just took a shocking turn. We're going to be talking about AK's major coaching change that is going to impact the Chicago Bulls moving forward. This is your host, Rico Greenhowe, and you have found yourself on another episode of Bulls Digest. And so before we jump into what AK's major move was, I first want to remind you that 74.4% of you that watch are not subscribed to the channel, so make sure that you go ahead and you slam dunk on that subscribe button because it means a lot to us here at Bulls Digest as we try to reach our end of the season subscriber goal. And so let's go ahead and jump into the content for today. And so we are looking at AK and his major move. And so if you have not got a chance to see this, this is on Bleacher Nation. This is Elias Schuster that is writing this, and then it also does reference something that Joe Cali actually writes about in the Chicago Sun-Times, and so you can see that under this title. And so there's a link into that into this article that'll take you to that Joe Cali article. But look, man, this was a shocker. Okay, I think that it's a shocker because starting with point number one, when we were talking about AK and we were talking about his press conference, one of the things that AK was talking about was development internal, right? Internal development and how important that was. And when you're talking about internal development, Peter Patton was the director of player development. And so he was like huge as far as really helping this team get to where it got to this season. I think that when you look at what Josh Giddey was able to do offensively and just how comfortable he was shooting the basketball, we talked about this several times before with Modest Buzelis and his ability to really look more comfortable as the season went along, the confidence that he had. Then, with Kobe White, yes, we know he could score, but then you have Peter Patton working with him as well, helping him become even better offensively. Ayo Dosunmu, look, he credits Peter Patton for the work that he had done with him in helping him. DeMar DeRozan's talked about Peter Patton before, I believe. Like, this guy is well respected amongst his peers, and I think that he's one of the best as far as just being just a guy that can develop your jump shot and kind of open you up offensively. Like, he's the guy that you go and see when you want to get a deeper bag offensively, man. And so for you to fire Peter Patton is shocking, because how could you come to the press conference talking about player development and how you were really impressed with the way that this team came together and not bring back a major piece that helped you get there? And so I don't understand this one. And I think that this really could have it could hurt the growth, I think, of this roster moving forward, because yes, the players are going to get locked in and everything else, and certainly they're going to put in their work. But you got to think about it like this. Peter Patton also, he's responsible for helping this team transition into this offense that we ran as well. So, I mean, he's like a foundational piece. When you're talking about a guy that you feel comfortable with, that has worked with these players, Julian Phillips, Dalen Terry, he's starting to get these guys to the next level. This is a team that finished 13th in as far as their shooting percentage this year. You got to now get a guy in here that is going to have to come in, really learn these players, and then they have to adjust to that. And it just seems like it's not something that got taken very well. In fact, if you go into that Bleacher Nation report, and that's the one by Elias Schuster, and again, it is referring back to something that Joe Cali wrote there. But if you go and you just look at just the Elias Schuster article, you can see where Joe Cali is talking about how the players just did not like that. All right. And so they're not very happy about the fact that they find out that Coach Patton got let go. And so that right there, I think, is tough, because now you're going to have your players, they certainly feel some type of way about him getting let go. And I totally agree with that, man, because this is a guy that's been putting in the work. We've been seeing the results. And I just feel like when you're talking about building, a foundation, you're talking about building an identity, you're talking about building, kind of a culture with the team, you need to get some stability. And that stability needs to come not only from the players, but the coaches as well. And so you're taking a main piece away from the Chicago Bulls that helped them get to the next page. And it just makes me think, like, what is AK doing? What is he talking about when you are saying that, yes, we are really into this player development internally, when you let go of a guy that mainly helped you do that? And next, I think it gets very interesting if you go into this one with the Joe Cali, when he writes about it. So I've read both of them, and I'll just tell you to just go click that and read it for yourself. But it sounds very much like that Coach Patton was the type of guy that is just going to tell you, like, look, this doesn't work, or, this is working or whatnot. Like, he's going to tell you, hey, the truth and what's really best. And it sounds like that maybe, AK really doesn't want to hear that type of feedback. It seems like, from what I gather, if you're not on the same page with what he's talking about, then maybe that is something that could get you let go, like in this situation. And I mean, this is really, just a lot of speculation there, but I start to think about just the situation that went on with Patrick Williams. And just, I think we had read a report where I think Coach Patton was just like kind of to the point where I think maybe he was frustrated because he couldn't necessarily get through to Patrick Williams. And I think that when you look at AK and what he did with Patrick Williams and going out there and offering him a contract and not letting him hit any type of, restricted free agency, they just outright offered him a contract. And I talked about this too at the end of his press conference when he was asked about Patrick Williams. All he said was like, hey, he had a tough season. He didn't have the season that he wanted to have, as far as the standards were concerned. But, I don't think that it necessarily kind of goes into what I think a lot of the fans really are feeling with Patrick Williams. I think the frustration has been there. I think a lot of people are wondering, okay, well, why did you bring him back and such? And, with the injuries and all that. But then if you have maybe a coach that is telling you like, hey, you need to do something else, and then you don't want to hear that, like, that makes me wonder, okay, well, what exactly is going on here? Because how can you get better if you're not taking that type of, constructive kind of feedback as to how you can get better, as a roster? And so, I wonder about that. Again, I don't know if that's one of the situations that maybe led to that. We'll never know because, again, we're not players. We're not in that building. But it just makes me wonder when you read these reports, what exactly is really going on here, and how could this team possibly move forward if you're not going to take that type of feedback? And so we wonder now more so what this front office is doing. And like I said before, if you don't know who Peter Patton is, he is definitely responsible, for helping a lot of our players just take a major step, whether it was Kobe White in taking another step. I think Giddey, look, he looked super comfortable shooting the three-point shot. Obviously, these players are putting in the work, but Peter Patton is right there working with these guys, laying out a plan. And then with Modest Buzelis, look, that was one of the things coming out of the draft. People were wondering, could Modest Buzelis shoot the three ball? Look, his shot looks very good. I've said this before. It does not look broke. He looks comfortable. And, it's not just shooting the basketball as far as the form and stuff like that. You're talking about, your feet placement, the type of elevation, rotation, all kinds of stuff goes into shooting the basketball at an elite level. And Coach Patton, he's that guy, right? I think that even, Jalen Brunson had mentioned him as well. And so, look, this is a guy very respected, and I just don't know, like, who do you bring in that is going to get more results than him? And then on top of that, the Chicago Bulls also let go their lead analytics guy as well. And so they just have one analytics guy in that department. And yes, I know, the game is played on the court and whatnot, but still, at the end of the day, like, you got to have, like, good analytics and things like that that's going to tell you, how to kind of get your game plan and stuff like that together. And so, look, I really question this firing. I don't think that this really bodes well as far as really building this team up moving forward. I think that, look, man, that could really spell disaster, especially when you have had a guy there that has helped really implement this offense. He's also helped these players take another step, and I just don't know where you go from here. So anyway, let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. Do you feel like that AK made the right decision by letting go of Coach Patton? Do you feel like, no, he absolutely made the wrong decision? Coach Patton should still be with the Chicago Bulls. And look, he was a huge impact for the season that we'd had, I should say. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And as we always say, go Bulls, and I will see you on the next one. All right, peace.